2, 1, live.
Farts. Old farts. 2 old farts. Steve and Dave. Sometimes you find a diamond in the rough. Not this time, though. This is just rough. 2 old farts. There is no better waste of time. Two guys. 2 old guys. A lot of BS and more drivel than you can shake a stick at. Steve and Dave. God help us.
Well, David, I'm very excited about our show today because, first of all, one of our guests is wearing a New York Yankees cap. I'm not crazy about the Yankees. If it was Mets, it would be better. But, we'll forgive them. He's in London. They don't know.
Okay.
And second, it's 2 of my favorite guests. So right away, I'm very excited. But I think, unfortunately for you, the Nigerian Bank of New York has contacted our guest with the New York Yankees cap, and they may be paying him now to promote New York City. I don't think you got the deal anymore. Just saying.
Well, that's life's a bitch, and then you have a Nigerian bank account. Anyway, it's going to be a banger. It's a banger today. We've got 2 fantastic guests on. One's indoors, the other one seems to have had a domestic and is sleeping in his car. But hey, it's
and we just lost the one that was in his car, so we're just going to hang out with he's back. So let's bring them in because I think.
You think he was so annoyed when you mentioned the fact he was sleeping in his car that he turned the video off?
I think his wife came out and killed the gerbil.
Yeah, we got the BrownCarGuy and the cigar guy today, so it's a banger.
I know this is the best. This is the best. This is 2 of my favorite things. Like if I was going to have mistresses, this would be it. Cars and cigars. That's it. They would be female, gentlemen, but I'm just saying.
I'm not sure how I feel about that analogy. I have to be honest.
There you go. Not you two gentlemen being my mistresses, but the cars and cigars are my
You've already said it now. You've already said it now.
It's out there. I'm sorry. Yes. So,
Stephen, if you're in a hole, stop digging, mate. That's all I can say.
Yes, I see that now.
Stephen, just so you know, karma has caught up. I've got tonsillitis for the past week, so I haven't been smoking anything, which is why I'm not lighting up today either. But you can call it karma. You can call it a break, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
We'll talk past
a break. Well, actually, yesterday I had a cigar, and I almost sent you a picture. It was the Davidoff Year of the Tiger.
You should have sent
it. Enjoying
it.
I bought like a whole box because I'm the Year of the Tiger. So I will send you next time I light one up. I will send a picture of it.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So
either that or it's a good
terrible.
excuse not to speak on the show as well. I've got tonsillitis. Can't say anything. just got to chill.
To be honest, that's actually probably a blessing in disguise. We might actually hear less from him, which is probably not a bad thing, I reckon.
Well, it's funny because he said the same about you.
He obviously has been thrown out. And he's displacing his anger on the people around him rather than the person he should take it out on.
That's right. That's right.
I thought being the brown car guy, I thought, why not do it from the car? How cool is that?
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Well,
What's this
I've also got a sign, but I didn't know. I know people listening can't see the sign, but I've got a sign, but I didn't know where to hang it up. So there you go.
Right.
There you go.
I love it. That's awesome.
Is it?
That's a bit of Pakistani truck art for you. So that's truck art. So this is a style that's typically seen in Pakistan on trucks and rickshaws and things like that. So I had this made over there, but with the BrownCarGuy logo.
It's like a drug dealer trying to push cocaine to you. He really believes in this product. He really, really believes in it, even though it has no meaning whatsoever. What color is your car? What color is your car?
The car is black.
Black car guy.
The car is black, but I'm brown.
Nonsensical.
Hey, they've got catering in the car as well. Did you see that? Catering in the car, doing it all.
I got my coffee.
I actually live in a house.
And the coffee is Action Comics, which is the first edition of Superman. There you go.
All right.
I think Stephen is very intuitive. He nailed it first time. Shahzad's been thrown out. He's living in some sort of sleeping bag. The coffee is there. There's probably a little wire that comes from the house all the way to the car. that charges up his little kettle. That's the way he is.
Actually, I think you nailed it earlier, because we're getting to a point now where they just don't want us to use cars in London anymore. That's basically where we're heading. And come August this year, it's going to cost me a daily charge just to drive this thing, because this is not a ULEZ compliant. By ULEZ, I mean ultra low emission zone. So I'm just getting used to the fact that I just come and sit in the car and just enjoy it for a bit and then not actually go anywhere.
Can we go back to the thing that? Can you go back to the thing you showed us that came from Pakistan? I'm not quite sure what it was. It looked to me like the world's largest air freshener for hanging in the car.
Let me take it out of the pack, because it's probably reflecting too much. But this is a plate that I had made. There you go, in Pakistan, and this here is known as truck art. So this is a sort of unique form of art that's very popular in that part of the world. And if you ever see pictures of trucks and the buses and things in Pakistan, they'll be festooned with this kind of coloring and this kind of art. So there's a company called Gul Khan Truck Art, and they do this on mugs and plates and wall decoration, all kinds of stuff. And so they made this plate for me with this basically truck art, but with my logo right there in the middle there.
Yeah. So most
now
people,
you just gave David a whole bunch of ideas.
Well, most people, of course, when they live in a house, they have a letterbox and stuff can be put in there. But you just hang it up in the window so the post gets delivered straight to your car. Is that the gig now?
Actually, to be honest, I had this made because what I do is I take this car, which is my BMW 1989 BMW E30, to events. I take them to car shows. So I took it to one on Sunday, in fact. And what I have on the side, there's a couple of inscriptions on the side windows and on the back window, which says BrownCarGuy. But I wanted something colorful that I could display on the front window. So basically, I had that made so that when I go to a show, I can just leave it on the front there, so people can see whose car it is, and a bit of branding, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Either that, or it's sort of amnesia, and you can't remember which car is yours. So it's easy.
Oh, that when you get to this sort of age, you never know. So, and you go to a car
with that license plate.
Sunday, there was quite a few BMW E30s, so it's quite easy to get confused about which one was mine, right?
Well, with that license plate, you'll never lose your car anywhere.
So the thing is, what I realized,
and no one else would want it.
I think this is an American size. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Yes, it is.
I think this is an American size plate, but unfortunately, the UK size is different, so I can't put it over the number plate. Unfortunately, so
it's the number plate. You kept saying plate. I thought it was a wall hanging.
No, it is. It is basically a wall hanging thing. But I thought it was an air freshener number plate.
Oh my God!
So it's a giant.
So wait, I want to touch on this. Other than the air freshener, I want to touch on something. Because when we had Raz on before when we were talking about cigars, he was talking about London Nazis, and I was like, "Ooh, there's still some alive. We got to get the the Simon Wierthal people to come and find them and track them down and kill them." But he was like, "No, you can't drive your car in London." And you just brought up a point that coming in August, you're going to just sit in your car and look pretty. But by the way, you do a very good job of. But if I live in London proper, they're going to charge me a daily tax to drive, and if I live outside of London, they're not going to charge me. Is that what we're going to?
So basically, we're referring to what's called ULEZ for short, which is actually called the ultra low emission zone. This already exists in London. This was introduced in 2019. The congestion charge we've had for a few years, and that was for central London. The congestion charge, the idea was to reduce traffic in London. So you pay about 15 or 17 pounds now to go into the central London area in a car. And then in 2019, they introduced ULEZ, which was an additional £12.50 charge if you had a car that was non-compliant in terms of its emissions. So for petrol cars, that means anything earlier than Euro 4 emissions. So that's a standard of emission that's looked at across Europe. And in terms of a diesel, it would be Euro 6, so anything pre-Euro 6. Effectively, what that meant was that most petrol cars prior to 2005 could not drive in the ULEZ zone, and most diesel cars prior to 2015 could not drive in the ULEZ zone. Now, last year, what they did is that they further expanded that ULEZ zone up to what we call the North and South Circular Roads, which is sort of the inner ring road around London. And that was quite a difficult thing to stomach. But for me personally, I live literally just on the right side of that ring road, so I was okay. But the whole thing about congestion charging in ULEZ in central London, I don't entirely disagree with it, particularly in central London, because central London is very congested. It is very traffic logged. The air can feel polluted there, but also the public transport system is so good that I never take the car into London at all. Reza does, but I never do because I just use the tubes and buses. They're so good. Now, what they then decided was literally at the end of last year in November, they announced that in August this year, which is hardly any time at all, they are now going to expand that ULEZ zone to pretty much cover the whole of Greater London. So in some areas, that's as far as the M25, which is the big ring road that goes around London. And that pretty much affects everybody that lives in the London area. Now, again, the same thing applies. If you have a non-compliant car, then you'll have to pay a £12.50 charge. If you have a classic car, if it's over 40 years old, you can register it as a historic car, in which case you're exempt. But I fall, unfortunately, right in the middle of that, where mine is a 1989 car. I have another 7 years to go before I can classify it as a historic car, unfortunately, even though most people would regard this as a classic car. And clearly, it's not going to be a ULEZ compliant car.
Right. So if I live in London and I don't have a compliant car, so whether I drive it or not, are they charging me the £12.50 every day?
No, if you don't drive it, you're fine. So as long as I leave it parked here, okay, I'm okay. But if I go out onto the road, basically they're putting cameras up everywhere. So these are ULEZ, there's what we call the APNR, so automatic ANPR, automatic number plate recognition cameras. So the moment you drive to one of those, it will spot your car, and then you'll be charged for it. If you don't pay for it, you'll then be fined, which is about £180 if you don't pay for it. Wow. So it's £180 fine if you forget to pay for it. So basically, if I leave it parked here, I'm fine. The moment I take it out onto the roads, if I hit a camera, that means I'm liable to a charge.
Right. So now I know why you got that plate made, because you can put that over your front plate and your back plate, and they don't know who to bill.
You can do the Canadian thing. No. You can do the Canadian thing where they've got these magnetic maple leaves. You put them over the number plate.
That's in New York. Apparently, that's going on in New York.
I'm not advocating it, but that's what Canadians do.
Yeah. Apparently, that's what's going on in New York.
They do that everywhere.
Our plates are not metal, Reza, so we can't do the magnet thing.
You know, all these things to one side, the taxation to one side, and all this. I mentioned to you on the last discussion we had. I said two words which suddenly got everyone's ears pricked up. I said Nazi London. And there was a reason why I said that. In terms of civil liberties, in terms of democracy, it's all gone sideways. Shahzad has been on this for weeks and weeks and weeks. There have been consultative studies about air pollution. There's been consultative studies as to who can afford this, who can't afford this. And the vast, overwhelming majority of people don't want it. And there is no case for pollution to answer for this tax. So little by little, and almost in real time, and we're beginning to notice it now because we can actually see these things happening. You can't drive around freely. You can't park freely. As I mentioned to you, it feels like, I actually would like to know the actual statistical answer. More than 50% of London is a 20-mile-per-hour zone now. We're not used to these things.
And all of central London is 20 miles per hour. And now they're introducing it there.
The cost of buying a new car, COVID notwithstanding, the fact that demand and supply is totally warped. The car that cost £12,000 2 years ago costs £20,000 now. The Porsche that you wanted to buy for £130,000 2 years ago costs £260,000 now. Everything is prohibitive. In terms of civil liberties, in terms of what you want to do, when you want to do it, it's like a big party pooper. It's like, don't do anything, sit at home, pay your taxes, generate an income, and pay it all away. But don't do anything. Don't do anything fun anymore, unless you've got loads of money to spend. And that's what's happening.
It's almost like 1994. They just want to make sure that you stay indoors.
Basically,
right?
basically.
And the thing is, they just want to track you.
Exactly. And to build on what Reza is talking about, I mean, it does feel, I mean, you know, I don't want to get into like conspiracy theories and all that, but it does feel like this is part of a plan.
Please do. Please
do. All right, sure.
The lizard people are coming. I love it.
So. You should see the comments I get on my YouTube videos. But basically, if you've heard of the concept of 15-minute cities or LTNs, we are seeing a rollout of these things now across the UK, not just in London, but across the UK. Oxford, for example, the city of Oxford is introducing the 15-minute city concept. And the idea of these concepts, I mean, fundamentally, it sounds like a good idea. The idea seems to be that,
could you explain that to us?
Yeah,
that's a new one.
Yeah, I'll explain it exactly. So basically, the idea of it sounds quite reasonable. What they say is that everything that you need should be available to you within 15 minutes of your home by walking or by cycling. So that means, your work, your shopping, your medical needs, your school, whatever, all of that should be in your area. And so the idea is then you don't need to go into the next zone. So you just stay within that 15-minute zone. So Oxford City, for example, what they're doing is they're now zoning it up. And the idea being that, you will stay in your zone. You'll be allowed 100 times in a year to drive into other zones. Other than that, you can't do it. You'll be fined if you do that otherwise. The only other way that you can then do it, because you'll say, what if I work at the other end of town? How do I get there? You'll have to go out onto a ring road and go all the way around and then come back in again. And that's the only way you can do it. But you can't cut across a zone into another zone. And these are being rolled out across they're planning to roll them out across the UK, across Europe. And the idea basically is to force people out of their cars. And in addition to that, one thing that we're seeing in London a lot in places like Islington and Hackney and other areas are LTNs. And LTNs are basically low traffic neighborhoods. And the idea there, again, is to force people out of their cars, is to basically stop other than residents being able to drive on those local residential streets. So all of a sudden you have tradesmen and you have delivery people and you have other people that are having a headache because they can't access those areas. So this is all part of what seems to be going on. If you really want to get into conspiracies, then there is an international organization called C40. C40 constitutes a number of mayors from major cities around the world who are all basically, again, if you go to the website, the aims and ambitions all seem very noble and very good. But ultimately, when you think about it, you think about ghettoization, you think about restricting people's movement, you think about restricting people to certain areas. And then you look at it and you realize that our mayor, London Mayor Sadiq Khan, is actually the chairperson of that group at the moment. So when you think about why he's so insistent on rolling out ULEZ in London, despite the fact that in a consultation that was provided to the public, up to 80% of Londoners said they didn't want it, and despite the fact that his own report by Transport for London, who have done an independent study of the impact of the ULEZ expansion on the public health, because apparently there's a public health emergency, reveals that there is negligible to no benefit whatsoever to those areas, and yet he wants to roll this out at a cost of £250 million, which is the cost of putting the infrastructure in place. You think, how is he justifying this? And you think, well, actually, there is another agenda at work here, possibly. I'll shut up now.
So what's the other agenda then? Because I don't understand.
Well, the agenda basically is to restrict people's movement, to drive people out of cars, to basically stop you from owning cars, to restrict your movement, to control your movement. Again, if you talk to conspiracy theorists, this is what they're saying, basically.
Okay.
Essentially putting people in cages, full stop.
Yeah.
There's no other way.
And their cage happens to be your flat.
I've spent time in the USA.
Well, it's in your area. It's in your area. And if you think about, again, you think about ghettos and ghettoization, and you know that fundamentally we've already been down this route once before in the 50s and 60s, and we know that this is not a good thing. We know that this doesn't help social development. We know that it doesn't help social economic development. So why do we appear to be going back down this route? And also the concept of 15-minute cities. Sorry, you've got me on a rant now. But the concept of 15-minute cities, the fact that, supposedly everything is within 15 minutes of you, that's utter nonsense. Because as Reza will tell you, there's nothing within 15 minutes of us.
But even so, for example, I spent a lot of time in the USA on the East Coast, near DC, near Baltimore. Just in terms of observation, virtually anywhere you go in that part of the world, there is a central mall which has got a cinema, it's got no end of shops, it always has a Neiman Marcus, it always has the standard shops, it has the restaurants, etc., etc. And people will go there, local people will go there, but local people will not go there all the time. They feel to go an hour away, they feel to go meet friends, they feel to have a change in their lives. Normal humans are the only seemingly the only animal organism that out of curiosity wants to explore what else is out there. And you can't stop that in human nature. And if you restrict it, then you are putting people in cages. It just doesn't happen. Here in London, there is always congestion somewhere. There is always an issue of traffic somewhere. You want to go somewhere else. You want to travel by the tube. You want to travel by car. Every single thing seems to be locking itself down. And we have no concept of consumer advocacy here whatsoever. We used to see in the late 70s and 80s, how in the USA you have people like Ralph Nader who go on and push consumer causes. We don't have that here. We just get in a line and follow like sheep.
Yeah.
So,
well, in Britain, we do like our queues, don't we? We do like to queue up for everything, But even when you talk about the restrictions, and you're quite right. I mean, even though across London, it's difficult to get into London, it's difficult to go across London, but we still do it because it's part of, being alive. It's part of who we are. It's part of traveling. Like I was telling Reza that my family likes to go to a big mall here called the Westfield Shopping Centre. There's one that's not far from us, and then there's one that's at the other end of London. And invariably, every time, which one do we want to go to? We want to go to that one. That's the other end of London. Why? Right. Because we can. Why not?
See, now, the only city where I think, and you're wearing the baseball cap for it, the 15-minute city works is really New York, Manhattan, because you literally leave your apartment, you come down your apartment, you make a left or a right, and within 5 to 7 blocks, you have every restaurant, every nationality. The transit, like now that they've cleaned up the tube, if you will, the transit below the ground can get you anywhere in the city within 15 minutes to a half hour. So driving in New York is really ridiculous. I think we talked about this the last time Roz was on the show. Is when I was a kid, we used to watch a movie and the guy would jump in a cab and go, follow that car. And we would all laugh and like, you could literally just walk the city blocks and follow that car a lot easier than I'm going to follow that car. So New York is really, I think, a 15-minute city. I think it's always, because it's all condensed. But like, here in Austin, if someone says you can't drive somewhere, you're going to die because there's nothing close. Everything is spread out, right? And in London,
let me come to that as well. I mean,
sure.
I actually concur with you that, for example, the central London area, the London area that I grew up in Islington, actually. I was born in central London. And right. Around there, you didn't really need a car because you could literally walk anywhere within 15 minutes. Everything is there. That's right. Fine. But outer London is a different story. But what about Scotland? I mean, right. Can you get a more rural, rugged, wilder terrain? I mean, there's less people in the entirety of Scotland than there are in London. The population right. of Scotland is substantially less. I think it's about 5 million, and we have 9 million people in London. And so this is what we have. So in Scotland, the minister of the net zero minister in the SNP, the current party ruling Scotland, has recently said that their plan is to cut cars altogether by 20% by 2030. And people in Scotland are like, how are we supposed to get around? Right. It's impossible.
Horses. We're going to use horses. Go back to the day where you had to use horses.
Exactly. But is he talking just about the big cities? I mean, we have, let's take here in Holland, in Amsterdam. You want to drive into Amsterdam with your car? Crazy. Nobody wants to do that. The infrastructure, fortunately, is there. Public transport. But the last thing, Rotterdam is exactly the same. You can just about get to the edges of the cities. And then you've just got to get on a metro and then do the rest. Yeah. So everything's against you. I think Amsterdam, the last time I parked in Amsterdam, it was something like 60 euros an hour.
Yeah.
So that, it's just that saying, okay, you can come into the center of Amsterdam because we have family who live right by Central Station in Amsterdam. You can come, you can park your car, but it's going to cost you 60 euros an hour, park your car.
Right. But I think a lot of this has to...
So financially, you kind of think, maybe it's not such a bad idea to get the park and ride or,
and central London is the same. Like I said, I mean, I can jump on a tube I can walk 5 minutes down the road. I'm at Kingsbury Station. I'll be in central London in less than 20 minutes. I never drive into central London. There's just no point, even though I used to live in central London. And I remember back in the day, talking about, early 90s, I used to have a Toyota Supra at the time. My early Sunday morning drive, the thrashing the car bit that I used to do every week was in central London. Because central London, there were Sunday trading laws, so everything was closed. There were no cameras, and central London was deserted. And I literally would blag around the West End and the City of London and have a whale of a time. I wouldn't even dream of driving into London today. But that's fine. That's as it is. Because when you look at a city where the infrastructure exists, you go, that's fine. But when you come to a place like this, you come to a place like Scotland, you come to a place like, where Steve is, then you're like, well, it's an impossibility. What do you expect us to do,
Well, I think a lot of this is because the 14-year-olds, and you could be 14 or 114 when I say this, they're all like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end with pollution and we have to do this and we have to do that. I don't want to be rude or anything, but when I grew up in, the 1 BCE, we were worried about the same thing as well. And now all of a sudden, because we've gotten to the point where the tipping is like, there's no going back, everyone's like, we need to do something. That's kind of like the dike is broken and someone wakes up one morning and goes, you know, we should fix it after you've flooded like 7 cities. It's like we've already surpassed that. And then everything they're coming up with to fix it isn't really working. So I think this is like, look at us help you make your life better. And you're not making it any better. You're actually making it worse.
No, but there's blame culture. We live in a world of blame culture.
Right.
Go fix what's at home. Go fix your own character and personality. But not just youngsters. There is, how would one call it? One call it the zeitgeist of the time. Is this blame everything, blame environment, blame oppressors, and there's some very valid points in that. But there's no self-reflection. It's just there's a cultural shift which has been going on and on for the last 10 years. Everything else is wrong, but I'm wonderful.
Right.
And this culture is very it's driving people like me totally nuts. If we come back to the cars have been in our psyche for about 100 years. I couldn't think of anything apart from smoking a cigar, that's more of an expression of freedom. You get in your car, you pick the color of your car, you pick what kind of car you want, you decide when you want to turn left and you decide when you want to turn right. And when people restrict that, we can go on about civil liberties. Your civil liberties are restricted absolutely everywhere, but it's one of those things that people are very, very sensitive about, where they can drive their car, how they can drive their car. I mean, you're already limited by speed limits and where you can go and when you can't go these days. Now these punitive charges absolutely everywhere for you to do the thing that was perfectly normal 5 years ago or 10 years ago and 20 years ago was a pleasure. Right. So it's this oppressiveness,
for example,
this real oppressiveness, like you must do this, you got to do this, and you cannot do this.
So for example, what I'm going to do right now is, if you'll start, I'm turning my car on, right? And now I'm going to sit here leaving it running. Technically, that's illegal.
Really?
Technically, that's illegal.
But it's a good thing you're in Mexico filming. Good thing you're in Mexico filming this then, because we wouldn't want you to get in trouble in London. So that's very good that you're in Mexico where that isn't illegal. So we like that.
I'm on in my defense, I'm in a private car park. So
okay. I just want to share.
But technically in London, you could get done for leaving your car idling, and it's absolutely crazy. Now going back to the whole climate point of view, the Greta Thunberg effect, as you say. I'm not saying, we're not of the notion that there is no impact on the climate. Of course, right. I mean, man's been doing a lot of activities on the planet for quite a while, and of course we've had an impact on the climate. That's inevitable. But right. You have to put things into perspective. And the car, unfortunately, just appears to be an easy target. Right now, very sadly and tragically, we have a war going on in Ukraine. You know what they estimated so far has been the carbon footprint of the war in Ukraine is 33 million tons is the carbon footprint of that. And once you've had a war, and of course there's conflicts going on all over the world, so there's all of that carbon going out there. And once you've had a war, here's the other thing that's very interesting. So for example, I looked it up, they worked out what's the carbon footprint of rebuilding Syria after they had the war there. That's 22 million tons. So you're talking about 50, 60 million tons just to have a war and then to fix the stuff that you blew up. I mean, humanity, priorities, people, what's the matter with us?
Well, we've been in wars. We've been in wars forever. I mean, like if you literally, I'm thinking since day one when the earth cooled, so to speak, we've been fighting wars. I mean, you keep going back and back and back and back. So I think humans are it's a land acquisition game. Hence why I think we like American football, because you're just conquering 15 meters at a time.
Just measured out.
It's all about space. But it's one of the issues here, fundamental issues here, certainly for the Brits, is that they have this incredible love affair with cars, and there is
we have that over here though.
I know, but you have the space for it. But the UK, there are so many cars per head of population.
No, I think it's this woke pop. I think they go back to what Reza says. It's this blame woke population, which is ridiculous. It's like, listen, if they want to drive a car, drive a car. If you're going to make something safer, make it safer. But if you're going to tell me I can't drive my car into your city or your street, then you need to do something for me that makes my life easier when I get there. Like, at least in New York, we have garages that are 30, 40 stories. I'm kind of exaggerating, right? But at least there's garages. If you drive your car in, there's a place to park, right? Granted, it's going to be $15 to $30 an hour, makes no difference. Boom. But they help you. If you don't want to take your car in, between Grand Central Terminal and and Penn Station under the Garden, you can get in and out of the city relatively quickly. That's what people in Connecticut do and people in New Jersey do. So New York has made it that if you don't want to use your car, have one, which most people don't have a car in the city, right? That's crazy. You can do it. So I think a lot of this is people. They've come to the dance too late.
And this is a point that I've constantly made. That, for example, as I said, in central London, it's simply not an issue to not have a car. It's absolutely fine because central London is extremely well connected. It's not a problem at all. Over here, so I'm in northwest London. If I want to go to a shopping place or somewhere in North London, say I want to go to, say, Brent Cross, which for me is a 15-minute drive away. But if I don't have a car and I decide I can't use the car, I shouldn't use the car, you know what I have to do? I have to get on the tube. I have to go into central London. I then have to make 2 changes and then come out on a different line all the way back to that place, which is 15 minutes away from me. It just took me an hour and a half to 2 hours to get there. And also, when you talk about carbon footprint, people talking about, well, actually, we're trying to help the environment. Well, are you really? Because that short 15-minute journey that it would have taken me, but suddenly I've now used the tube system to go into London, to go across London, and then to come back out again. Surely that can't be efficient either.
No. Well, here's and this brings me to, and Raza, this one will be about cigars. When I lived in New York full time, I remember I would walk around the city, in the summer when it was nice with a cigar, and I would just walk from my apartment to Central Park or just go for a nice walk. And I remember one afternoon, this lady was standing on the corner. She came up after I was there and gave me this look. And I'm like, hey, I was here first. And then as she gives me this look, one of the New York City, this is the older buses, with all the pollution when it drove by, literally a cloud of black puff came in both of us, right? Full of soot. And I looked at her and I said, and you think my cigar is worse? And it's sort of like, pick your battles, people. It's like, seriously, when you're you can't smoke indoors. Really? That's worse than in New York City, walking in the city? You know what I mean? Do you know how much pollution I'm breathing? Because no one's wearing masks. This isn't China, right? So I'm fascinated with the battles people pick.
Let me give you another stat. So, for example, the main reason with having ULEZ is because it's a public health emergency. And we're talking not so much the carbon, the CO2 emissions, we're talking of the NO2, the nitrogen dioxide emissions, now the NOx basically. And that is the stuff, and the particulate emissions. So the particulate 2.5 and the particulate 10, the PM 2.5, PM 10 are the things that cause lung cancer, respiratory diseases, and what have you. Now, what an independent study, in fact, I think it's King's College in London, has found is that the particulate emissions in the underground, in say the central line or whatever, is 15 times higher than the most congested road in London.
Wow. That's crazy.
So they want us to use the underground. It's actually worse for our health.
Yeah.
Are you saying that lies and deception are being used to charge us more money?
Oh my God. Do you want lies and deception? Oh my God.
Are you saying that London is run by corrupt forces who are only greedy for ego and financial gain? Is that what you're saying?
Is that the royal family or the lizard people?
No, it's the government. The royal family, they just live. They live in cloud cuckoo land, so that's a whole different thing altogether. But you take, for example,
they already did it.
Cloud lizard land.
It's done.
Are we back to the Nazis again? Is that what we're moving on to?
Yeah, but the Nazis look like us now. So that's
exactly right.
So Brother Sadiq Khan, who's the mayor of London, so his main justification that he uses for the ULEZ expansion is he's going to save 4,000 lives a year. This number keeps coming out, 4,000 lives a year. So I looked into it, where is that number coming from? How has he worked out 4,000 lives? Somebody recently did a Freedom of Information Request Act request to the...
Where will they live?
Well,
where will these 4,000 people live?
No, but it's not real.
Hang on. We've got it. It's a cultural issue. It's not just Donald Trump. It goes back to Boris Johnson. It's been going back for maybe 10, 15 years. People love to make up numbers.
Yeah.
And when someone makes up a number and they say it again and again, it becomes kind of real.
Exactly. The 4,000 number. So let me
and all that does, it influences how the masses then behave.
Everybody repeats it. Everybody repeats
It
it.
just goes on. It's a perpetuation.
Exactly. So I was like, where is this 4,000 number coming from? So recently somebody did a request for Freedom of Information Act for the Office of National Statistics. And the Office of National Statistics confirmed that in the UK between 2001 and 2001 and 2021, they have only one registered death, as tragic as it is, but only one registered death specifically listed as due to air pollution. They say they do not record any deaths due to air pollution from cars. They never record any deaths like that at all. So where is the 4,000 number coming from?
Do you remember?
The Imperial College of London.
Do you remember when Donald Trump, during his presidency, the media here was fact-checking everything? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Fact-checked. It doesn't happen here for some reason. It doesn't happen with regards to.
But that's what I'm doing. So I went back to his report. I went back to the report that he's using, which is the Imperial College of London report. In the report, what they actually say is that by doing this now, by expanding the emission zone, somebody born in the year 2013 will benefit by an extra 5 to 6 months at the end of life. They will extend their lives by 5 to 6 months. So basically in 2094, you'll have an extra 5 months, which by that time, I don't know if you really want it or not, but whatever. That's what they do. So what they've then done is that they've then looked at the population of that segment of 2013 born in the London area. They've multiplied it out and they've gone, well, the 5 or 6 extra months equates to around 4,000 lives.
Do you know what a statistician is?
Oh my God.
Do you know what a statistician is? A statistician is someone who can lie down flat with his head in a fridge, his feet in the oven, and say that on the whole, he feels normal. You can make up anything. You could just make up anything. You could say anything. You can make up anything. You can get any academic institution to do a research for you and fund the research. It makes absolutely no difference. Lying and mistruths are the mainstay of today, and they're used entirely to generate more income. That's it. That's why I call it that. It's just control and charging through lies, and that's why I call it Nazi London. It's Nazi UK. You might as well call it Nazi UK.
And everybody knows that 25% of the statisticians are wrong. So I mean, that's just to give a number. Everybody knows.
25.5. 25.
I'm sorry. Yes, 25.5. So I'm sure there's a couple more decimals we can throw in there.
Value-added tax.
That's yes, God forbid. See, people in America don't know what the VAT is. So when I go there and I say to somebody, if you go to a McDonald's, if you eat in, you don't pay a VAT. If you eat out, you pay the VAT. They're like, what's a VAT? I'm like, don't worry about it. So it's like, they don't understand that in America. They also don't understand what Celsius is. So, that's so, and the thing is, if this ever, you take New York where you can walk, and there's not a lot of cities like Los Angeles. If you don't have a car, you're dead. Like, I can't think of a lot. Like, if you live in Montana, there's 6 people in Montana and a goat or some deer. If you live in Montana and you don't have a truck or anything, you're not there. No, reindeers aren't going to get you from A to Z there. So it's interesting. And I'm sure we're going to come up with something like this here in the States. And Palm Beach on the island, what they do now, because what's his face lives there, the guy who makes up numbers. They have cameras, so every time you come in and out, and you can only go so fast, and you can only do this, and so they've literally limited the island now, so you can't go. So if you live there, it's great, but if you don't live there and you want to go to like Worth Avenue and go shopping, it becomes more of an event. So it is kind of separating church and state to a point where rich and poor. It's like, we're really rich, you stay this side of the wall. You're poor, you stay on that side of the wall.
I
think that's where we're getting.
You have all these crap systems as well. There's one when you drive down from here down into Rotterdam. At a certain point of time, you're only allowed to drive 80 kilometers an hour, not any faster, because behind the wall, as you go to this particular junction, you drive into the city. There's a whole lot of people whose washing and windows get covered in soot, which they say comes from the cars. Not from the chemical industry, which is only about 5K down the road. So what happens is that everybody slows down to go in, so the traffic picks up, the traffic congests, the traffic doesn't go 80, it goes 60 and then 50, and we all crawl along in this 80 kilometer an hour zone. And then when we get far enough away from wherever people's washing is getting dirty, the zone is lifted and everybody just puts their foot down and drives off out the other side. And so you have these two big areas. One is like where all of a sudden there seems to be less carbon in the air, and one area around where the 80 stops and you can drive normally where it picks up again. Absolute madness. And then you have other people saying, well, yeah, but the window's not getting dirty. No, the window's not getting dirty, but we all are, because we're all in a traffic jam, all calling into this zone where we're not supposed to be driving any faster. Madness, absolute madness.
And actually, you're making emissions worse, because by slowing traffic down and congesting it together, you're actually intensifying the level of emissions in that area. So their windows may be clean, but their health might be worse off. That's the problem. And I think that is fundamentally the thing. Is like when these organizations, when authorities, when governments, when local authorities, they introduce these rules and regulations, they don't put things into context. They don't look at the consequences of what they're doing in particular areas. It's just a blanket rule, and a blanket rule shouldn't apply to everything. Yes, if you say to me you can't take your car into central London, I'd be like, fine, I agree with that. That's okay, because you don't need to, and it doesn't make any sense. If you apply the same rule to out here, I'm like, no, wait, this makes no sense. And also, like, you got to look at what you're talking about. You can't go here, or you can't go to shop. You got to understand the consequences that has on businesses. And the consequences that then has on the economy. I mean, there's a knock-on effect. You can't just knock one thing over and expect everything else to stay the same. No, it's gonna have the repercussions are gonna echo throughout everything that goes on in your land.
But I don't think politicians think like that. I think they look at the soundbite and what's going to make, if you will, the 6 o'clock news or the front page of the Times. And that's it. And they don't really think about it, because they're getting paid off by whatever company or whatever, their constituents. So they're just looking at, oh, this will look good for my reelection. This will look good for my this. I don't think they sit there and go, this isn't good for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And this isn't good for the kids. And I think that's the issue, like whether it's cars, don't smoke indoor. I don't think they look at a bigger picture. They just look at,
exactly.
Everyone complained.
And that brings me to EVs, for example. Now, I'm not anti-EV. I love EVs. I think they're fantastic, and I think there's a place for them for sure. But the notion that governments and authorities and organizations at the moment have is that everybody should switch to EVs. It's like, whoa. First of all, EVs are not suitable to everybody. Secondly, the carbon footprint of producing and delivering an EV is 26 tons on average. To produce and deliver an average car is 6.8 tons. You do the maths. If you're trying to turn the global car park off their petrol and diesel cars and switch them all to EVs, that's a planetary ecological disaster waiting to happen. And in any case, it can't happen because there isn't enough lithium to go around in the time scale that you're talking about.
But the other problem with that is,
you can't even charge your car up. Sorry, you can't even charge your car. The Germans themselves have said, we think there is at least 1 million charge points that we need in Germany.
We're not making enough. We're not making enough.
At least 1 million
here in London.
And the thing about it is like the same thing here in Holland. Everybody says, "Oh, it's got to go EV." So that's great. I live in a row of houses. I don't have front garden parking.
Same here. I can't charge a home.
So I've got to have a cable that goes 500 meters, or I've got to wait until somebody moves away from the charging point that I can possibly put a car there. But the other real elephant in the room is, tomorrow morning, if the Dutch just said we're all going to go EV, there's not enough electricity. End of story.
Yeah. I mean,
we could drive a car, but we couldn't put a light on.
Well, there's pros and cons to all of this, because at the moment there is actually a bit of an electricity problem. There are shortages, there are blackouts. Ultimately, if everybody did charge their cars, it wouldn't, because people often say to me, it's like, oh, we would collapse the grid. No, you wouldn't, because the grid staggers itself. So you wouldn't be able to charge your car. So it would just stagger the amount of electricity people are getting. So it wouldn't fall over as such. And when we're getting to 2030, there's more power stations coming online. There's more renewable energy sources coming online. So it is possible that it might happen. But having said that, the infrastructure just isn't there at the moment. and also the rising costs. So, for example, just a year and a half ago, I was standing in an exhibition hall extolling the benefits of electric cars, and one of the benefits was that it's cheaper to run. And I was saying that, well, you know, driving a petrol car is approximately 15.5 pence per mile, and driving an EV would cost you about 7 pence per mile. But now, if you public charge your EV, they're the same. And in fact, some cases more expensive.
It is more expensive here to do at the moment. They're still subsidizing it. But if you actually had to pay the current energy rate that I'm paying to keep the lights on in here, then it's cheaper to have a petrol car.
But the other thing,
I'm not anti
EV
EV
right
at all.
now. You need to buy a petrol generator and just keep that home, fill it in petrol, and use that to charge your EV.
But I'm not against EVs at all. It's not like I'm sort of anti. But I just think, well, you know, it's just one of those hot topics that everybody wants to talk about, and they, you know, the politicians.
But they don't talk about the mining of it, though, right? So forget the EV.
Oh, who cares about digging a hole?
I was just gonna say, and Bolivia has the largest lithium deposit, I think, on the planet. So now, and I've been to this thing.
Bolivia, Chile.
Yep.
I think maybe Chile. It's Bolivia, Chile, and Australia is the lithium triangle.
Yeah.
But we've been to Bolivia when we used to do business there. But wait, but you're going to take this pristine place. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, but it's Bolivia.
Oh, I know what it is now.
Bolivia.
But I know. But my point is, now you're just going to dig it all up, and it's going to look like every. So it's like we don't really think through things. Once again, it's kind of like, what are you going to do with the batteries? We don't know. What are you going to do with this? Don't know. And the only problem I have with EVs, I know, right? The only problem I have with EVs is that 45 minutes to maybe 15 minutes, depending on the charger you get to, you get 300 miles. I can go to my gas station, put petrol in the car, and in 3 minutes, I'm back in the car. So when I go to like stores here and they have a row of Tesla chargers and you see all these people in Teslas, they're reading a magazine, they're reading a book, they have to go shopping. And I'm like, I don't have that. I don't have time. I got things to do. So in my garage, I know I can put a charger. But if I want to take my family on a trip that's say 350 miles, I think the Porsche does, 350. I think Tesla does 6 miles. But anyway, what do I do when I get to mile 349 and it says charge? And I'm like, okay, I got to find a thing. And it's like, there isn't any for 10 miles. So until they make it, and going back to your point, tons of chargers, or the road charges you up, there's got to be something, and it can't be, or where it's infancy. I think in 20 or 50 years, it'll be great.
Yeah.
Right now, it's kind of like, no. I'm sure it's like when when you went from horse and buggy to the Model T or Isuzu if you were in Japan, gas stations or petrol stations weren't everywhere. And probably 30 years later, they were on every street corner. There's even a couple petrol stations in Manhattan, for people that need to actually get gas at $90 a gallon, if you will. So, and I think people have to understand that, this is nice, but you really need a plan, and there is no plan. It's all hype right now. And I think that's the issue, is like no government has a plan. It's all the companies saying, this is really great. We should do this. We should do this. Yeah. But there's no plan to like, okay, now what?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You nailed it on the head when you said it sounds like.
It's just death and taxes. There has to be new ways of taxing you. That's all it is. It's just a fad. Electric cars are here. Deal with it. They are here. It's no problem. But it's just a new way of generating a new type of tax and justifying tax. That's all it is. We are proverbially the cattle that are being milked by the people who are at the top. And deal with it. That is all it is. You'll always pay taxes, and you always end up paying more and more taxes. Right. It's a question of civil liberty. What are you being restricted from doing, and why? That actually, personally, that's a bigger topic for me than anything else.
And I think that what you were talking about earlier, Steve, about the electric cars and the infrastructure and stuff like that, I think it's got to be a holistic approach to these things. I think that's what we're lacking. We don't look at the big picture. We don't look at we got to look a big picture, but we also got to look at micro. So we got to look at individual circumstances. So the electric car is not right for everybody, but it can be right for a lot of people, and that's fine. And I see ideally, if you step back from the rhetoric and the craziness and the sound bites and the political statements, you go, well, actually, there's a case for having petrol cars, diesel cars, plug-in hybrids, and electric cars all coexisting together, because the needs and requirements of people are different. And people will have different uses for those cars. Plug-in hybrids, for example, are a great concept. because around town you drive them as an EV, and if you want to do that longer trip, you just put petrol in it and off you go. Right. So you need to look at all aspects. And again, when people say, "Oh, petrol," it's like, yeah, but there's a lot of technologies going on right now to look at alternative fuels, such as e-fuel, such as synthetic fuel, such as synthetic fuel made from carbon extraction. So that's net zero, because what you're doing is you're extracting the carbon back out of the air. Why are we ignoring all these technologies and just going, "Oh, this is the only thing that we know, so we're all going to do this. Let's bang that drum"?
That's because the trillionaires that are controlling the petro industry, as well as everything else, are like, those don't exist. So, like I remember 20 or 30 years ago, there was a guy in the States, his car was taken away from him by the US government because his car would run on water. There was another guy that had his car running on the grease that the restaurants threw out.
I remember this.
Took it away. And then I had a friend of mine whose dad told me a story that he had a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, I forgot. But he said they filled the tank, and the car went 500 or 700 miles before it was empty, which is unheard of.
Do you remember that they were developing? I think they were running VW Beetles in Brazil. This is my recollection, or Mexico, on vegetable oil. They kind of had it was as you say, grease.
I mean, even now, you buy an old Mercedes diesel, you can run it on the chip fat from a restaurant. You can run it on that. Right. It's fine.
That's what I'm saying. It's all there. And the story with the Rolls Royce was it went 500 or 700 miles on a tank of gas, which was unheard of. I remember he said he took it to the Rolls Royce dealer, and Rolls Royce said, "Oh, there might be an issue. We'll check it," and they replaced the engine. So I was like, interesting. I think Detroit, for lack of a better term, or the Detroits of the world, I think they can make an engine to go whatever cleaner. But back in the day, nobody cared.
Was it the Saturn? Was it the Saturn?
Saturn was General Motors. Saturn was General Motors. Yeah.
You remember those? You remember none of those now exist because they were all confiscated and destroyed. Because again, because the petrol companies didn't like the technology that was in those cars. So you can't actually find one of those now. They've all been destroyed.
One the other day. I know I've seen a couple.
Really? That's worth a fortune. You find that's worth a fortune.
Really? Because the ones I saw, they don't look like they're worth much. But I remember when Saturn first came out.
Maybe it's not the Saturn I'm thinking of, but I know that GM they experimented with very early electric cars. And they had this technology that was really, really good. I'll have to look it up and I'll email you later.
Well,
but these cars were basically sorry.
Cold fusion was hushed up in the early 90s. Do you not recall that? Yeah. It just went quiet after that, right? So it's been like 30 years since, and they're talking about it again. Of course, people who are in charge, people who have the ability to do that, will hush it up because it's not self-serving.
I mean, there's a concept of atomic diamond batteries at the moment, and this is not from the 60s Batman show.
Star Trek.
This is not from Star Trek. Actually, it is from Star Trek. It's like lithium crystals.
Show your badge.
But basically. I know I saw his jacket has a little Star Trek emblem there. Are you going to tap this and go beam me up, Scotty, during this interview? Because that'd be really cool.
I would, but there's a lot of tachyon atmosphere.
Okay.
Interference, so the transporters are offline right now. I'll have a word with Scotty later on. But the point of the amazing concept is that you take the waste from a nuclear power plant. This is off the graphite slabs, and you basically compress them. Until they form a small battery, which basically has a half-life of 5,000 years and emits power. So basically that will never run out. To make it safe, you then encrust it in diamond. So you basically got a nuclear-powered diamond battery that will run for pretty much ever. But at the moment, they can only do it in small quantities. But it's a feasible possibility.
That'd be, that'll never happen because there's no money in that. I said this on one of the shows a couple of weeks ago. If we went with Nikola Tesla's free energy, his towers that could do free energy all over, kind of like it's what the pyramids were supposedly for, then you wouldn't have any of these problems today because your cars would be running, if you will, you have an EV on free energy, but then how do you charge? How do you make money? So when, what's his face, Morgan tore down the tower after he had a meeting with, I guess, the car guys and the petro guys, there you go. So it's like, we're a greedy planet, and now that everyone's about to die, it's kind of like the sun's coming at us. It's like, what do? We should have done something like, I don't know, a couple hundred years ago when we had the chance, but nobody cared because it's all about how rich can I get?
And this is
that's
the other
really
thing.
What it is.
And this is the other thing. It's like it's a business, right? It's all driven by business. It's all driven by profit and loss. But what it's not driven by, and what it should be driven by, is technology. It's technological achievements. And again, going back to the Star Trek thing, the Star Trek universe exists without money because the only purpose of the Star Trek universe is for betterment of the self. And in that means technological development. They explore the universe not because they're looking for profit, but because they're looking for betterment of themselves. They're looking to learn more. They're looking to develop more. They're looking to learn new technologies. And I think that that's where we've gone astray. We're like, no, can we go back to what we're good at doing, which is innovating, which is engineering, which is coming up with solutions to the problems that face us?
Well, now we have AI that'll do that for us. We don't have to do anything anymore. So to everybody's point, we can just sit in our homes, our flats, and AI will do everything. Apparently, it'll make us money, cook us food, and there you go. We're off to the races. So I can have my two mistresses: cars and cigars and scotch.
I'm now about to do my Star Trek Star Trek trick for you all guys.
Killjoy's killing the show. You know how it is. Dad's killing the show. So, guys, thank you so much for coming. That was awesome.
Thank you, guys.
My pleasure.
If you want to hang out till the end of the credits, David's going to ask you 10,000 more questions, so it'll be good. So, but no, you guys were great. Thank you so much. If you like the show today, give us a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel. We also have BrownCarGuy. He has a great YouTube channel. We go as well. Reza is on Instagram. So we want you to like all our guests, and all their links will be below. I haven't seen this exit, so now I'm watching it and reading it at the same time, which is probably the worst thing in the world for me to do. We'll see if David speaks again. This will be interesting.
Well, sadly, this is the end of today's show. A really big thank you to everyone who contributed today to the show. And of course, thank you to my co-host, Stephen Oldfart. I'm David Oldfart. Don't forget, subscribe to the show and get all the latest updates from Two Old Farts Making Noises.